Hey there, I'm Caleb Brown. I was born and briefly raised in Altoona, Pennsylvania. I now live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And recently, if you're from Altoona or you're familiar with the area, you may have seen huge news about a classic style of pizza unique to Altoona area. It's the Altoona Hotel Style pizza. I've been familiar with it for forever. It's American cheese on top, just deli-style salami under the cheese, and then a green pepper rings, slices underneath that. It's something that Altoona folk love, at least for the most part. Although it's certainly super polarizing, it became sort of a bigger thing on social media. By the way, drinking this Toasted Head barrel-aged cab from '07. Anyway, I remember it as a kid, but never had the luxury of enjoying it, unfortunately. The Altoona Hotel burnt down, I believe, in 2013. But I don't even think it was on there, and you can correct me in the comments, please. I don't think it was part of their menu anymore anyway. I don't think it's been on their menu prior to burning down for like 10 years or something. I don't think it was really a staple anymore, but everyone remembered it. If you said, remember that pizza from Altoona Hotel, everyone in the area knew exactly what you're talking about. Here's the thing, I'm not here to praise it or trash it. Unfortunately, I've never had it. That's a big part of why we're gearing up to make one, so I can kind of try it. But I'm not here to trash it. I get it. I get it. But I want to experience it. I think, food's number one purpose, right, is to make our bodies continue to go. And then the secondary purpose is all just straight nostalgia. It's what we remember from our childhood. So if you had a really, really good time on Sunday with the family, going to Altoona Hotel and getting an Altoona Hotel Style pizza, I think that's great. I think it's phenomenal. And because you can't get it anymore, well, I guess you can. Demos, a couple folks do it actually. But if you're in quarantine, or even if we're past this, and you're just at home and you want something to do, I'm gonna do two things. This is a two-part series. This first episode, we're just making it as authentic as we can. All right. The next episode, which will be linked down below, we're going to kind of do a more gourmet version, a little uplifted. And that's because it is so polarizing. I want to see if we can take the concept and make it something that isn't so hated. Again, this is the first episode of the two-part series. Let's go ahead and jump into what goes into the crust of the Altoona Hotel Pizza, and we'll go from there. So what I'm using here is the most authentic recipe I could find for the whole thing, but it kind of focuses on the dough, on the crust. And from just searching for a while, this is just the recipe that kept resurfacing Reddit, Pinterest, everywhere. I was unable to kind of locate the origin of this recipe. Folks on Reddit seem to say that it was pretty authentic. So that's what we're going to be basing it off of. Just looking over the ingredients list here and everything, it looks pretty straightforward. It sounds like pizza. I've made many pizzas in my days, and it looks pretty standard. The only thing is that it's asking for self-rising flour, and I didn't have that. And my guess is that a lot of you, if you're just looking in your pantry, don't have that either. And quick Googling, it's tremendously easy to make. So the first thing we're going to do is make some of the self-rising flour. And the self-rising flour is incredibly easy. Here we have 1 cup of all-purpose flour. This is 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And then this is just 1/4 of a teaspoon of just regular salt. And we just whisk that together. And like I said, we have about a cup here now. we'll only be using 3/4 of a cup of this. Okay, so what we're gonna do first is just proof our yeast. Really simple process. All it means is we have some warm water here, a little bit of yeast, and just a pinch of sugar. And we're gonna combine that all together. And yeah, just a pinch. I think I've seen some recipes call for honey to be used. I think they're just being extra. I think it's fine to use just regular sugar. You can hit it with a little whiskey business there. You just kind of let that eat. You let the yeast kind of warm up, eat those sugars up. Just about 10, 15 minutes, what you'll see is a bunch of little bubbles coming to the top. And that's when we can add that in and then combine all of our ingredients to make this crust. Okay, so we're pretty proofed here. I think we're about 13 minutes in. But the important part is we're seeing a lot of bubbles. It's loving that sugar, it's eating it up. So really the only thing to do here is to add the rest of our ingredients and then just kind of mix her up. And we're gonna go from there. So olive oil going in, the recipe in the description. This is onion powder, I believe. We got some honey here, and I have this little tiny baby scraper. My mother got this for me for Easter, but makes getting little tiny bits of out way easier. Look, we'd be going all day if we didn't have this guy. So there we are. Some nice some nice sea salt. It's actually I'm smelling the is it onion or garlic? It's garlic. Smelling the garlic. It smells great. Here we have our self-rising flour that we made all by ourselves. If you have self-rising flour already, well then by all means use that. But if you don't, tremendously easy to make, as we've already covered. And then here we have the bread flour. And here's the thing, I do think bread flour is important. I know a lot of people sub out for all purpose. It's, you know, it's the gluten content. It has more gluten or it makes more gluten. I don't really understand how flour works. But I do think that bread flour is important. I love King Arthur. Any bread flour is good. Is it a little more expensive? I don't know, to be honest with you. Is it annoying to buy 2 or 3 different kinds of flours? Yeah, absolutely it is. Is it worth it? Yup, all day long. So the bread flour goes in there. And then we need, I think, 1/2 cup of warm water. So let me grab that. Okay, we have just 1/2 cup of warm water going in there. Now, here's the thing. Perhaps you're the person that wrote the infamous recipe here. And if you are, I appreciate it to no end. However, the instructions say to mix with the end of a wooden spoon. Like the end of the wooden spoon? Like you specify the end, so you mean like the handle? If you have a KitchenAid with the bread hook dough thing, use that. I think you should use that. I kind of flat out refuse to get one. It's a weird, dumb thing that someone should talk me out of. I make all of my pastas, all of my doughs, all of my everything by hand, 100% by hand. Because one night I just got on this thing where I was like, well, all of these, you know, beautiful, amazing Italian grandmas didn't have a $300 KitchenAid mixer, so why would I get that if, you know, they're better than me, right? And so I refused to get one. If you have one, you should use it. What I'm gonna do is just use a spatula and kind of knead this in. Again, if you're the person that wrote this recipe, I appreciate it because you're helping me out right now. But mixing with the end of a wooden spoon is a weird thing to write. It just is. So we're gonna mix this like any other bread dough. Just mixing it in, mixing your wet ingredients in with your dry ingredients, getting it all to really love each other. You smell a lot of that garlic. Is that a thing? If you're an Altoona person, can you write in the comments again? I've never had one of these. Can you write in the comments, was the crust really garlicky? Is that a thing? Is that the? I don't think this is good. Is that the thing? Was the crust garlicky? I didn't know that. Because this is real garlic. I mean, it smells great, but rarely do you put spices in your crust like that. That's interesting. That's part of exploring this and learning, you know, these sort of regional delights. So now that it's mixed there, you don't need to mix it too long. Just make sure everything comes together. We just put plastic wrap over it, let it rise on its own for a couple of hours. Okay, so we are back with our authentic Altoona style pizza crust. I have a board on top of my work surface here, very nicely dusted in flour. Kind of punch this down a little bit. It is, I admit, pretty sticky, but we're gonna get it out. Use this flour to sort of work it around a little bit. We want to, but we just want to move it around a little bit. And if you're getting this stickiness like I am to this degree, you can add a little bit more flour to work with. Okay, so I kneaded this a little bit, and then what you want to do is eventually just kind of give it this like sort of spin move here where you move it one motion with your hand and get it into more of that traditional kind of you know, pre-pizza dough. And then just a little bit of olive oil here. Same, I washed out the same container it had been chilling in, but you want to make sure you get plenty of olive oil in there. And then once you have this nice little ball, plump it right in. A little bit of this on the top, won't hurt. And we're gonna let that go for a couple more hours. I'll throw on the screen what I ended up doing, but you know, nice to get that nice olive oil flavor kind of involved in there too. Okay, so here we are with a pretty authentic lineup in terms of Altoona Hotel Style Pizza. This is the dough we've labored over. This is the most intense part. Everything else, child's play. Even after I kind of put this, which I didn't think I needed to show you, pretty easy. You spread that into your vessel. Even that, they asked for an hour or two to let it do its thing. We've got our classic green pepper rings. Listen, I tried to find Del Grosso pizza sauce, couldn't do it. We got our kind of Oscar Mayer style salami and our, you know, electric orange American cheese. So let's go ahead and put our pizza together. Have you ever seen anything more beautiful? There we go. Altoona style pizza, Altoona Hotel style pizza, ready to go. We got our salami, we got our green pepper rings, and we have the gorgeous American cheese. So the recipe that we've been trying to follow to the best of our ability says 15 minutes in an oven that's 550. That's not absurd. To do a higher temperature for a pizza is pretty common. I'm going to experiment a little bit and put into the comments what I think is accurate. The instructions also say to par bake the pizza, where you cook the crust for a couple of minutes first. Obviously, we didn't do that. I felt that it was a thin enough crust. It's not super thin or anything, but it was thin enough that I didn't think we needed that. And maybe that'll be a lesson learned. I'm going to toss her in and let's see what we come out with. Okay, so here we are after about 25 minutes. And listen, I kind of go back on my original statement. I understand why the idea of par baking the crust makes a lot more sense now. It is a little doughy, although truly not too bad. The edges of my cheese started to get a little brown. You can kind of see in this slice after about 15 minutes, and so I was hesitant to keep it in there. But we have a pizza here, and I'm gonna try it. Yeah, so I get it. I think it looks worse than it tastes. It's bark bigger than its bite. Makes a lot of sense. To be honest, there's a lot of flavor development in the dough, which makes sense because this thing has been part of our nightmares for the last day, just in 3 different steps of letting it ferment and do its own thing. Truly, out of all of the pizzas I've made, probably the most steps for letting it flavor develop. So you actually have a lot going on in the crust. I don't get a lot of that garlic powder that we put in there, but maybe that's part of this. I think there's a lot going on in this crust, and I feel like, again, I don't know how authentic this is to the original, but that's a great crust, and people should focus more on that. As for everything else, a lot of salt, right? And if that's what you're looking for, it's not bad. We love salt. So the salami working together with that American cheese, it depends on your personal feelings about American cheese, but there's a nice saltiness and a smooth texture with it. And it really works well with everything. You get that crunch of the peppers in there. And very few folks are all that upset about peppers. So that kind of brings everything together. Is it my favorite pizza in the world? No. Do I think it's good? Yup, I do. I think it's a good pizza. I think that everyone should try it, whether it's at home or if you're in the Altoona area or driving through the Altoona area and want to check out Demos or someone that does it. Absolutely do that. I actually recommend doing it at home, especially in quarantine. It's a fun project. So I truly, at the end of the day, I think it's an interesting pizza. I think it's good. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's amazing. Down below, there's a link to a more gourmet version of this where we make our own processed cheese. And I think that's pretty interesting.